Austria's reenactment of certain inglorious aspects of its history, where religious persecution has been replaced with medical persecution, the common theme of which is the isolation of the supposedly unclean, might not align as well with the presumed underlying rationale as they'd have you believe. And the two are extremely similar. Today we're talking about the isolation of the presumed infectious disease ridden, and back then we were talking about the isolation of, amongst other things, the typhus-ridden Jews. This is a Nazi propaganda poster saying something like "Jews covered in typhus." Bet you weren't expecting to be confronted with that charming image. So, how underpinned with rationality is the new Austria? Austria imposes full COVID lockdown, makes vaccination mandatory. Austria will become the first country in Western Europe to reimpose a full coronavirus lockdown to tackle a new wave of infections, and will require its whole population to be vaccinated by February, its government has said. Austria had introduced a lockdown for all those who were unvaccinated on Monday, but since then infections have set new records. I'll come back to that, but best to break off here and take a look at the actual situation. Austria infections from beginning of November. The 19th of November was the daily infections peak, and the 24th of November was the 7-day peak, after which things started going down. That was the lockdown of the unvaccinated, 15th of November. So from that point the cases carried on up another 4 days to the individual day peak and another 9 days to the 7-day peak. It wasn't actually until the 27th that cases fell for the first time below the number on the day of the lockdown of the unvaccinated, 11,600 there and 11,800 there. And again, from this day here, the 7-day peak wasn't reached for another 9 days. So going back to the article, when they say Austria had introduced a lockdown for all those who were unvaccinated on Monday, but since then infections have set new records, that gives a somewhat misleading impression of exploding cases, which is false, but the direction is correct. They carried on upwards. Did nobody notice? Lockdown for the unvaccinated, and cases carried on rising for another 9 days. We have not succeeded in convincing enough people to get vaccinated, Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg told a news conference, saying the lockdown would start on Monday. Lockdown of the unvaccinated, cases carried on rising another 9 days. We have not succeeded in convincing enough people to get vaccinated. Who was outside? Who was inside? And for good measure he referred to the rebels as representing an attack on the health system. Really? They were at home, they were out of circulation. They have the law of the land as their alibi, as the crime carried on and the cases carried on rising. Who got the blame? Who is getting the blame here? Anyway, lesson partially learnt perhaps. Lockdown of the vaccinated as well a week later. Austria goes into full lockdown as COVID surges. Days after Austria imposed a lockdown on the unvaccinated, it has announced a full national COVID-19 lockdown starting on Monday. Monday the 22nd, a week later. So where are we now? Lockdown unvaccinated here. Add to them the vaccinated here. Cases start falling here. Who got the blame? The Jew. The unvaccinated. Time now to have a look at the vaccination situation, and if you're watching this video on YouTube, unfortunately you don't get to see this bit because it's not suitable for YouTube. The full version of this video is on my Rumble, and the link to the full video is in the description of this YouTube video if you're watching here on YouTube. So unfortunately, for the moment at least, ta-ta to the YouTube viewers. Okay, now we can welcome back YouTube. Hello again, YouTube viewers. I know this looks extremely weird, but I've been considering the Austria cases surge with regard to the vaccination situation. And in relation to that, Austria had introduced a lockdown for all those who were unvaccinated on Monday, but since then infections have set new records. We have not succeeded in convincing enough people to get vaccinated, said the Chancellor. And the presumed correlation is what? What is the presumed correlation? We've seen the timeline of the cases and the events along the way, and we've seen the timeline of the vaccine rollout. What is the presumed correlation between the supposed problem, that one there, and the suggested solution, that one there? I do but ask the question. And you might want to ask that same question to veteran BBC broadcaster Andrew Neil, who came out with this charming homily the other day. If you don't want to be jabbed, fine, but I don't want you anywhere near me in a public place. Irrational pseudo-medical hysteria. That's where they implemented the lockdown of the Untermenschen, and that's what carried on happening for the next week and a half. We know who got the blame, and we know who doesn't appear to be at fault. So don't blame people for trying to fit together the pieces of the puzzle when the puzzle seems so completely devoid of the claimed logic. And don't necessarily blame respected and apparently newly demented presenters when they go on these adult meltdowns. Maybe they're just as puzzled as everyone else. Don't forget to like the video and consider subscribing to my Subscribe Star, which you can do for the price of just $2 a month to ensure the continuance of quality content. The link to that is in the description, as is the link to the fuller Rumble video.